Cool. So we've talked today about loads of really cool things. There's AR, there's VR, there's AI, loads of really cool things like what is the future of app marketing. But actually what I'm going to talk about today is going a little bit back in time and thinking about some of the techniques that perhaps we don't think about so much and what the future of app marketing could look like. So yeah, again, apologies for those who take the tube or the bus every day. I have a text from friends saying, keep seeing your brand everywhere, can you stop it? But really, part of our sort of strategy was really on building a brand and how can we achieve sustainable growth. We're seeing saturation in lots of the digital channels, Facebook and all that kind of stuff. And how do we really get people coming straight to us? Because we're competing with some really big brands out there. So we have to find kind of other methods, and building brand is one of them. So obviously, as you see here, some of the creative that we kind of did out of home, and there are kind of lots of other kind of different channels for that, but really colorful, really big writing, and hopefully really stands out. And that's something that we've kind of seen to work quite well. So the question I guess you asked, like, does it really work and how do you measure it? So here's a bit of work that someone a little bit smarter than I did, some analysis on, like, did it actually really have an impact? And this is only really measured on organic growth for installs. So there are lots of other things that you can measure, obviously, brand recall and brand uplift and that stuff. But this is really just done on organic levels. And as you can see here, we ran a campaign in January 2018. Lo and behold, statistically, it really made an impact. And again, May 2018 really made an impact. And then we ran lots of stuff this year. Started in January, we actually had a dip, and then back again in February. So what we've seen is that it really does impact, and that's statistically significant. But obviously, does that really have an impact on the actual numbers? And I haven't got the kind of slides and data here, but actually when you look at organic uplift, and we just took a kind of 12-week rolling mean and looked at the organic numbers for that day actually were different. We see a very similar chart where there are real peaks in our organic growth. And actually, that's not the chart I wanted to show, so I will skip over that. But actually, really, really interesting and something that's worked well. And even on a kind of cost per acquisition basis, something it's not as cheap as Facebook, it's not as cheap as Instagram, but hopefully long term, it's something we didn't measure, obviously, lifetime value, pre and post. But again, you can kind of dig into that a little bit deeper. The other thing that is revolutionary that we're going to talk about in terms of future app marketing is like our website. And websites, we still see lots of people coming to our website first. When they see us in an ad or something like that, they come to our website for more information. So something that we've done really well is drive lots of organic traffic. We create loads of content, area guides in London and that kind of stuff, and we see a lot of traffic to our website. So how do we actually use that to actually drive installs? So things like dynamic buttons, so that I'm an Android user, so as you can see, there's the kind of Android sign. Download the app straight on the homepage as you see it, and we also have some smart banners across every page of the website. And what actually we implemented this year, and we saw a really good change in conversion rate from 0.11 to 1.5%. And when you're driving significant traffic to your website, it makes a difference. And it's not something you perhaps always think about in the kind of the future of app marketing, but just really want to touch upon some of the key things that are important to think about as you look at sustainable growth.
You're an Android user?
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, no apologies.
No, it's really good that you said that, because in theory it is kind of the future, because it's all just been driving networks. But actually, we heard it earlier on the panel earlier, I think the one that Fiona was doing, around tube car panels and how those are actually really impacting mobile growth, and not a lot. I mean, people are starting to do it, but I think we'll see a lot more. So thank you very much for sharing that. Carla, who are you? What's your name? Where'd you come from?
Hi, so my name is Carla Manent Molina. I am Senior Marketing and Commercial Manager at TUI for our mobile apps. For those of you that don't know TUI, I'll tell you a little bit more as an introduction to the presentation. but it's the biggest integrated tourism company in the world. So that sounds really big. It depends on how you slice the words that you use. You can always be the biggest at something. But yeah, so we're the biggest integrated tourism company in the world. What does that mean, integrated? We actually own the whole customer journey. So we have 400 hotels, 150 aircraft from 6 airlines. We have 16 cruise ships, 6 tour operators, and we go to 180 destinations. So it's a very big company, and I think I just wanted to say that because it's a little bit different, in some ways more difficult, in some ways easier to some of you which might have smaller companies. Because, for example, in terms of acquisition, so we have around 20 million customers every year that travel with TUI. And our average departure penetration for the app, which is how we measure of all the people that are traveling with TUI, how many are downloading and using the app for their booking, we have a 25% average departure penetration. So quick maths, around 5 million downloads already come from our CRM tools and from people that are traveling with TUI. Obviously, we do a lot of paid acquisition as well. But a lot of our organic acquisition comes easier to us than it might to some of you guys. So what I thought would be really interesting to talk today was, rather than about acquisition, where you all do a lot of great, amazing work, and maybe some engagement. So you obviously know the marketing funnel, like you're all very familiar with it. The analogy that you probably also know, but that I really like, that is similar to this one, is the one of the leaky bucket. So you obviously have like a bucket full of holes on the side and the main hole on the bottom that you want to filter your users through. You can pour a lot of water into the bucket, but if you have a lot of very big leaks, you're just gonna waste all the amazing work that you guys do in trying to acquire users. So every now and again, it's really good to work closely with the product team, trying to identify what those leaks are and trying to reduce them and make them smaller. So that's what we did last year. Also, based on the fact that, so this is a Localytics piece of data that I found from last year. 68% of app users churn within 3 months. But actually, I don't know how many of you were at the Leanplum talk before, but Christian actually said that they did some research this year, and they actually have 98% of churn within 3 months, which I found even more daunting than the 68%. So we decided to focus on that. And we thought, what could we do? New features, more push notifications, the classics. We did user research, and we actually found that what people were struggling with was the navigation and the design of our app. So they were saying, for a travel company, we weren't really that inspiring in terms of design. And that it wasn't a matter of adding more features and more stuff that they could do in the app. When they actually discovered the features, they thought they were quite good, but a lot of our users didn't know they were there. So it was about navigation, trying to get users to know what our features were and find them easier. So we did a very big exercise of redesigning and the design itself, the UI of the app, and the navigation. So together with the product team, this was a huge project. And what we saw is that we had a 42% increase in sales engagement, so in the amount of users that come and use the sales features in our app. So obviously that also ended up with more bookings. But also we saw a 17% increase in service engagement, so everyone that comes to manage their booking. So yeah, that's kind of just a learning for me, that sometimes when we think about the future, it's really good to look at all the new innovations in the market, but also don't forget that sometimes to solve your problems, you just have to go back to the basics and review how you can do that better.
Great, thank you very much. Did you say you can always be the biggest at anything?
I think
Because I keep on telling my wife that, but she doesn't believe me. I'm talking about my company.
This is Back to the Future, this, isn't it?
Thank you very much. That was really, really good. Thank you. Some really good insight. And obviously, for a much bigger business, it's great to see, obviously, what you guys are up to. Finally, we're going to but last but by no means least, we're going to go to Joe from Viral Nation, who I think has got some videos for us, but I'll let him introduce himself.
Yeah, so my name's Joe Galliese. I'm the CEO and one of the founders of Viral Nation. Was really excited. This is actually one of my first conferences totally dedicated to apps and mobile. I want to start by saying that as the CEO of a larger marketing agency, UA and app clients are the ones that give me nightmares. It's all, performance, performance, performance. And a lot of what we've built our agency on and what's made our agency better is people like you who really push the envelope with marketing companies when it comes to understanding that performance is really, really important. And at the level and the scale of which Viral Nation does things, from an influencer level, from a media level, from a creative level, apps have inspired our company to be able to not only look at things like you should. I feel like app marketers are among the smartest people I've ever met in the marketing space. You guys, tend to go over and beyond what it means to do marketing, and I think that that's changing the marketing space for good. But a little bit of background on Viral Nation. Viral Nation is a full-service marketing agency, but we grew and were crafted on the notion of influencer marketing. We run more scaled campaigns. Viral Nation specializes in high-budget, high-scale influencer programs. And we do work with startups here and there, and we do use our stuff. But what we like to do is, like digital marketing, like media, influencer marketing with scale actually tends to get better. And there's people like myself and other people I've heard talk at this conference who are in influencer marketing that, we're battling you guys to understand that influencer isn't just this, influencer posting something. It can be much more than that. And as we scale, we can get better. So what I wanted to do was, instead of going through kind of like a little micro presentation, was I want to show you 2 examples of incredibly successful campaigns that went beyond performance for us. One of those with Tencent. Tencent's Viral Nation's largest customer and who we do a majority of their social and strategy for, as well as the Lakers, Los Angeles Lakers and Wish.com. But just an interesting way to think about influencers differently. I think that if you guys can kind of get outside of the box of influencer and not look at it immediately as a UA channel, but look at what its benefits are, look at what the types of users are, look at the different ways of doing attribution models, et cetera, that influencer can be really impactful to you. And I don't know which the first video is, but I'll preface both of them just in case. So the first one is Viral Nation ran an esports tournament in Dubai for PUBG Mobile. PUBG Mobile, if you guys know or don't know, they're the largest gaming app in the world today. We've launched them from day one, and we continue to run all marketing for PUBG Mobile today. And Tencent came to us and said, we want to do things differently. So we're running mobile esports tournaments that are streamed by Twitch streamers as opposed to trying to get organic audiences to get onto PUBG's pages. And from that, the esports tournament was able to garner, I think at the end, close to 1 million live viewers. And we did that off the backs of using influencers and their channels to drive viewership back to this tournament. As well as selling close to 5,000 seats in the arena to watch the mobile esports tournament, a bunch of guys on their phone playing a game, which is pretty silly. And then the other is Wish.com. The Lakers came to us, and in Los Angeles, of all places, corporate bigwigs go to the LA Lakers games. And Wish.com has one of the biggest booths, like one of those fancy booths where you get free drinks, free food, and you get to watch the games. And we went to them and we said, give us that booth for one night. We're going to leverage how cool the Los Angeles Lakers are, and we're going to get big influencers to come in and do some stuff in an experiential way for free. And they were like, okay, that sounds a little bit wacky, but give it a try. And through that campaign, we were able to generate 5 million views outside of the arena in that one game. And it was all about driving to Wish.com's app. So it's just 2 very different ways of thinking about how you can go outside the boundaries when it comes to your apps and what your product is, regardless of what it is. And a couple campaigns we're really proud of that I hope will spark, kind of some creative thinking around influencer that's beyond, how many clicks can I get through their Instagram stories? How do I get them to convert on YouTube videos? And just look at influencer as he did with the subways, and how you can use them beyond their capacity. So let's see which one's first.
One of the topics that I did want to cover, and I'll stop talking when it starts, the future of growth, app growth, is the kind of topic of the panel. But actually, there was some news that came out about 6 days ago, which I thought might have not be the future of growth, but the halt to the future of growth. So I don't know if anybody read, but Sam Smith's pubs. Does everyone know Sam Smith's? I'll take that as a yes. Well, they've got about 260 pub chains across the UK, and the 73-year-old owner had banned mobile phones from every single pub. So if you go into a Sam Smith's pub, he's told all 300 staff to stop anyone using mobile phone, to encourage social interaction, is what he's said, which I thought was fascinating, because it's just amazing that a 73-year-old has come out and said, actually, you know what, screw mobiles, I want you to actually talk to each other. So we talk about growth, but do you think things like that are going to happen more? And just general thoughts, anyone?
Yeah, I think it's adding to that. The Guinness did a cool campaign where you could charge your phone for 30 minutes, and as part of that, you'd get a free beer. So I think a few people are kind of tagging onto that, and it's really... I guess the tricky bit for app marketers is getting your app at front of mind at the right time, as people have less and use, or if they're encouraged to use it less and less, or they want to use it less and less. You've got to be top of mind when they're in the right moment. Where for us, obviously, they're looking for a property. You have to be the first brand that comes to mind, or because of your communication, you're there at the right time. So I think that's going to be a real challenge if that is a trend.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I personally, I'm trying to use my phone less and less. And I'm an iOS user, which I assume at least 50% of the room will be able to identify with. How many of you use the app limits that came out with the iOS 12? Not that many, but more and more people are trying to use their phone less. And I think it's the exact same point that you said. How do we make sure that we stay relevant when people are trying to use their phone less? I think, in my opinion, it's about making sure that that we're there for when they do want to use it, that we're not trying to spam them and constantly be on their phone instead of being in real life, but that when they want to do something with you, that they can solve that need very easily and quickly with you. And I really liked a point that one of the speakers before did, Emily from Skyscanner. She said, if you have an app that people are only using once every quarter, think of other use cases that they can use the app for between that time. And I think that's what we try to do at TUI, at least. We don't just try to get people to come to us when they book a holiday once a year. We think of all the other times, like when their check-in opens, when they're actually traveling and they want to know when their pickup time is before they travel, so they create their checklist. So I think it's not about trying to spam people and for them to use your app all the time. It's about creating as many use cases and features that are useful for them to come to you.
I've got to say, that was an amazing answer. I'm not even joking. Going from that to that, genuinely, that was really interesting. No, I think it's great. Joe, I think that was actually more of a filler question, to be honest, unless you've got anything specific to say, but I was going to talk about influencer.
I would just say that I think the only piece that I think a lot of people miss when they're talking about this is the duty and responsibility I think that a lot of us has as parents. I think we can still sometimes ground ourselves with this, we remember when we were hanging out with our buddies, not on the phone, and we understand the value of that human interaction with people, and I see young people on dates sometimes when I'm at restaurants and stuff, and I just think that what we got to be more cautious of is the younger people, our kids, and making sure that they understand what we understand, because if we didn't understand it, think about where we would be. We have problems and we get it, right? So I think my add-on to yours would be, do your part as understanding how to limit your kids and different things like that.
Yeah,
definitely. But I think, I don't know how many people used MSN when you were younger, but I remember when I was coming home from school, the first thing I would do would be log into my computer and log into MSN, and my parents would tell me, who are you talking with? Oh, my friends from school, but you just saw them. It's not something new that we want to stay in touch online with our friends and family and all that. I think maybe now the problem is that it's more available all the time.
I think it's the frequency.
And people are trying to reduce that, which is, I don't think it's a problem. It's just...
Well,
I would say, like, when you were going home and trying to get on MSN, it was because you didn't have iMessage and you were already talking to your friends while you were at school, while you were talking to them, while you were with them. I think it's more of these additives and different things. Like, my daughter's on TikTok, and I can't stand it sometimes. And she's on YouTube right after TikTok, and then she'll shoot over to an app and play one of those games by Voodoo, or, you know, so I think that's kind of what I meant more so than the communication. I think communication's awesome, but I think it's the other stuff that we got to watch.
and probably while she's trying to do homework as well, which is one of the biggest issues. No, it is. I mean, kids. My sister actually takes her kids' phones and locks them in a box and leaves them outside of the room because no one can multitask properly, and especially when looking at all those channels and trying to work. But anyway, so influencer. So I'm actually really glad that you're up here, and you know, influencer marketing is something that, you know, is getting more and more popular, and obviously is really big at the moment. So I think the biggest question to you, Joe, in terms of like the future, you know, we've seen apps like Vine, for example, come and go. So, you know, is influencer marketing, does it have a future in mobile? And also, you know, is it a fad, or, you know, what's the deal?
Yeah, I think that overall, I think that influencer marketing is going to be a hard thing to tame, just because I think that beyond our youth, even people like myself, like, it's funny how many times I do conferences and I talk about how much influencers get paid, and I see people in the audience like rolling their eyes like, shit, like, I should have made a YouTube channel 10 years ago, right? So like, I think there's a lot of people aspiring to continue to be YouTubers and Instagrammers and et cetera. So I think that the world of influencer isn't going to change, and more people are going to try different ways to become influencers. So there'll always be influencers. I think from a marketing perspective, I think the reason I think we've been moderately successful is because it's beyond the influencer piece. So I think the days of, you know, Fashion Nova, clean your teeth, white teeth, all those things will start to dissipate, and it'll be harder and harder for them to leverage influencer in that way. But for instance, we run media through influencers on like 80% of our campaigns. That's just a way of integrating into something that's been around for a very long time, content licensing, et cetera. So I think over time, what'll happen is people will start to use influencer differently and make it part of a bigger, you know, kind of plot, as opposed to just having influencer companies or posting with influencers. And I think too, if you look at the NBA, the NFL, those athletes don't just do like one-off posts for brands or one-off commercials and never do anything ever again. I think that'll start to change with influencers. I think that influencers will become harder to attain, especially the better ones. I think that companies will start solidifying long-term relationships with them. I think a lot of them will come off the market. I think that it'll just kind of become, right now it's the Wild West, and I think it's going to be for the next 2 or 3 years. But I think over time it'll kind of just start to flatten in terms of people understand how to use it correctly. People will fully take advantage of it. And then it'll be more of like part of a larger marketing kind of initiative.
Yeah, definitely.
If that makes sense.
Cool, thank you.
I think it's important when you think about all these kind of new channels, like, yeah, getting in there early as well is often like when it's peak at its golden time, like really maximizing it. Get in there early as a brand and maximize what you can, and that's when you start seeing really good returns. You know, even for like App Store and Facebook and Instagram, you're seeing saturation there. Like, everyone piles in and you're bidding against so many different people. Like, if you see these new channels appear, yeah, it might not be here in 2 or 3 years' time, but just get in there and test and learn and see if you can like maximize it.
Yeah, and the faster you move, the better. Like, I have influencers who are around the same size as they were last year, maybe like 100,000 audience difference, who are charging close to 15 times what they were charging last year. So like, it's happening, right? Like, and you know, I feel silly too, because Viral Nation just built out what we call the Viral Nation launch. So we are really confident in our abilities now. So we set up this little Dragon's Den / Shark Tank where we're taking on companies and investing in them and marketing them ourselves. There was a time when we were fighting with app companies around like 10-cent CPIs. Like, they're like, we want 10 cents. And we're like, we could only do 20, right? And now they're like, we have $7. And I'm like, what did we do? Right? Like, what a mistake. So I think for you guys, like, every new channel that emerges, testing it isn't going to kill you. Right? And I would say, you know, test quickly. Like, there's a lot of innovative, smart guys out there. Like, the last presentation was on Live, right? Live is still a pocket of influencer that no one really uses, so they'll do it for very, very cheap, considering what its performance would be. when Instagram stories came out, for instance, influencers were like, I'll take $50 for that. Like, what? Because they don't get us on the advertising side, right? And we were getting like cost per clicks at like 1 cent. It was getting kind of silly. So you're 100% like correct in like getting in there as quick as you can.
I would have to like slightly disagree on one thing, and then don't forget what company you're working for at the moment.
Right.
Because sometimes we have a tendency to just jump into whatever is the newest thing.
Right.
And probably not when you're like a smaller player, you can try everything. But from our point of view, for example, it doesn't make any sense to target TikTok, the TikTok user base, because they're very young. And you can actually damage your brand by going in a direction that doesn't follow that of your customers.
Right. But I also think, so in your case, I wouldn't test TikTok either. You'd have to make like an informed decision based on what your demographics are and stuff like that. But like, we live in an era where media used to be guys on a trading desk like Wall Street. And now we can sign up for a DSP and do a free trial and buy media for $100 million ourselves from our desks in, Toronto, Canada, right? So like, I think a lot of things are testable now because unfortunately for marketing companies, we can't black box offerings anymore. Like we can't be like, you need $100,000 to try this, or else we wouldn't make any money because someone will figure out how to do it themselves. So like, I think that you're right in the sense of don't try everything just to try it, but like educated decisions on new stuff that work for you, I would try.
Yeah.
Do you think, Joe, that there's going to be like real pure attribution to influencers, and then you might actually see a slight dip in you have somebody who have these kind of supposedly big followings, actually it's proven, oh, actually, no one's actually converting from your following.
Right. So that's the tough part about influencer marketing. And I think like if I can tell everyone in this room one thing to think about, if they ever talk to an influencer marketing company, is we're human wranglers, not marketers. So influencer marketing, unlike every other form of marketing, is not push button. It's not optimizing, metadata. This is like, pick a table, and those personalities have never met them before, and I'm going to get them to all work together for your brand and hope to God one of them's not a psycho, right? That's influencer marketing, and that's what makes influencer marketing so hard, right? So when we do a campaign, we know at scale that if we have 100 influencers, 3 of them are going to suck. Two conversions to it. We paid them $10,000. They're going to convert 15 installs. Shit. But there's some that are unicorns. And so if you look at it like humans, right? Like there's a lot of people who tell you that their companies are bigger than they are. There's a lot of people who tell you that they have lots of clients before. Let me do the washroom at your house. And then they ruin all your plumbing. Like influencer is very human. So in order to scale it, in order to understand it, you need to look at it that way. And it's not this magic formula. So there are going to be influencers who suck. There are going to be influencers who are good. But that's why it's important to find people who have experience with them. Like I'd say on Viral Nations campaigns, for instance, we use 80% of people we've used already. Just so, like we have a spreadsheet in our office called the death sheet. And that's the influencers that no one at our company is allowed to work with ever again for the history of time, right? And that's just because, they didn't show up, or one day after posting an ad for our company that books hotels, they did another company who books hotels. Or one day after they started yelling profanity at nobody. Or, so these are the types of things we deal with, but very random and very human. So it's impossible to fix.
And so in terms of like the actual future though, so what kind of metrics are you actually looking at? Because interestingly, influencer has a similar issue, I think, actually to ASO. We kind of talked about it a little bit before in the way that it's quite hard to track. And I think certainly for ASO, we're trying to come up with lots of different ways of actually seeing impact. Mm-hmm. So what KPIs are you actually looking at?
So it depends, right? Like we've developed software that allows us to get all the cute stuff that marketers love. Engagement, how long someone watched a piece of content for. We're licensed by both Facebook and Google. We get everything they will allow us to have. So let's check that box off. Where it gets a little messy is it's that second touch, third touch attribution. So I'll give you an example as a consumer myself. I'm at work, I'm busy, I see a really cool thing on Instagram about a pair of shoes. I collect shoes. And I'm like, okay, I can't buy that now, and I'm definitely not buying it through the Instagram browser. So I screenshot it, and it goes in this folder of screenshots. And then at night when I'm on my desktop and I'm screwing around, I go buy the shoes. There's a lot of people who do that. And I think the behavior on social is so unbelievably different. And it puts people like myself and like him in really, really weird situations where people are getting the best of us in terms of our ability to scale. So I believe that on an influencer campaign, there's 3 times the amount of effect than what you're going to be able to see through data and conversion clicks. We've centralized that over like 10 or 15 campaigns, and that's been the average for us. But I think that over time, hopefully the platforms and et cetera will help us start determining what that attribution can look like. But for now, like golden handcuffs, we're screwed.
Well, thank you. All right, I think I'm going to do one last question because I just looked at James. I'm not really sure what he said. This is flashing nothing, so I'm just going to do one more. You're talking about getting into things quick, and I think seeing as they were talking about the future, so one area I think that people probably got into too quickly is around things around VR and AR and all these other acronyms and, you know, companies like Blipper, for example, kind of tried and unfortunately didn't quite make it. So do you see a place for those type of technologies in the future of apps?
100%. I think, you know, we were seeing apps, especially in AR. I think VR maybe is a little bit further off, but AR is kind of here and now. People are starting to test it. I don't know if anyone here has seen the kind of Burger King stuff that they've done where you can burn your competitors' ads, which is awesome, to get free Whopper. I mean, already so many things that I can think of that would fit for us. I know IKEA do things where you can kind of see your home, and it's becoming more and more. And you know, we were talking before about like what are the kind of all cool things. So I do think that is definitely some place that you know, we should be paying attention for the future. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the same. One example I really like is Ryanair. I don't know how many of you have seen it. They released this measure your luggage AR feature, where you can see like in which category your bag would fit. So you know if you need to pay more or if you can take it in the cabin. I think it's these kind of things, or either gamification or making something useful. I think the companies that crash and burn are the ones that just do it for the sake of doing it, rather than doing it because it has like an actual use for their users.
Great. I have no real comment.
No comment.
You guys put it in, we'll market it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, great. Well, I don't think we've got any more time, so thank you very much. Cheers.